free Kindle Unlimited books. You're the best. This is fantastic.
I got you, girl.
1, 2, 3, go.
Welcome back to the To Be Read podcast. I'm Julie.
And I'm Vanessa. And today we get the opportunity,
The honor,
the joy of collabing with one of our favorite podcasts, Weirdly Overthinking. And we've got Adam here. We're so excited to have you, Adam. You want to give like a brief overview of your podcast for our listeners?
My goodness, absolutely. Well, I'm so honored to be here. Truly, I've been looking forward to doing this ever since we even pitched the idea and it came up and planned it and collaborated. Everything. I'm so just hyped and thrilled to be here. Yes, a quick little tidbit about Queerly Overthinking. So I've been doing it for about 3 years now. We're on season 3, and I would say it's kind of self-explanatory in a way, where I am part of like the LGBT community, so queerly, and I am a bit of an overthinker, and I love to talk about a wide range of topics between like life, culture, social justice, self-love, all the things. And at the end of it, I'm like, am I overthinking this? Probably. So it kind of boils down to that kind of genre of, what am I overthinking about? And I always want people to come away from it feeling like no matter what they may be overthinking, that someone else has probably been overthinking the same thing. And it just means so much to me, because I've been, able to hear other people's stories and to see how it can be shared amongst others, of like feeling that desire to be seen, desire to be heard, even if there's no answer or resolve at the end of the day. So anyway, that's a little bit about Queerly Overthinking.
Oh, that's so much. Overthinkers unite.
But I loved what you said about, your experience and what your podcast is about, because that is exactly what we want to talk about. We want to talk today about representation and seeing yourself or seeing representation in books, and why that is so important in the publishing world, in the book space, and conversations that we're having about literature. We're going to do a little exercise here, and I want you to think about the last time you picked up a book and you're like, I just see myself. Like, what is it about this book that I inherently so relate to, and like why that was important as a reader? Adam, do you want to kick us off?
Ooh. So exploring this concept before we actually get into anything specific for which book, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Yep.
Well, for me, I feel like the concept around this book understands me, or I feel like I am literally the character in the book. If you kind of peel back the layers a little bit, I ask myself, what's the precedent that we're setting here? Not just in books and the content, the written word, but, I think it can span to various other mediums as well. But, what's the precedent that we're setting for not only ourselves, but future generations, to feel like stories are meant to be about them. They're meant to be about the people around them, and, they deserve to be told in a way, and that feels relatable and feels like they can truly feel like part of the journey that this character is going on.
I think being that there's someone else going through something that you relate to in any way is like a form of therapy that is indescribable, because you're reading it. It's not you going out looking for an answer. It is an answer coming to you, and how that relates to you as a person. It's like, some people will think that something divine is giving them revelation. It's kind of a similar concept. It's like the world just gave me an answer through this book. At least that's how sometimes I experience it.
I can relate to that so hard. And I think it's so cool to remember that books are usually about people and things that are happening to people. They may be in fantastical places and different settings and maybe in space, but like, these are human stories, and these are humans telling human stories. Humans.
What that reminds me of, is just, it kind of also builds upon the principle of it matters to tell your story, no matter how like big or small or long or short. I feel like it matters to feel like everything deserves a chance to be heard, to be recorded, to be shared. And yeah, because it is about like this collective people human experience. So I love what you shared.
It is so important to share because you never know. Like, you never know what you're going to connect with or who's going to connect with it. And I mean, we'll get into that when we go into the book that I picked because
I love what you said about whether you think it's a small story or a big story. Well, everyone is their own main character. I mean, I'm the main character in everyone's story.
you're my NPC.
But sometimes we go through life and we're like, oh, we're just living this simple life. And when you really sit down and boil it down to some of the experiences we've been through, like it's actually something that others can learn from. I really appreciate authors taking the time to like write their stories. And I can imagine a lot of authors almost have like imposter syndrome, like who's going to relate to this and who is going to benefit. And I've heard so many authors say, you know, like if I could just touch one person's life, but like realistically, it touches so many. That would be interesting to hear from an author, their perspective. It's so important, whether you think your story is big or small, is to record it because most likely it's really impactful on someone else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like hearing that, it reminds me that, you know, we may be going through life and having different experiences, but I feel like even if we're going through similar large life events and we're taking away those individualized thoughts or feelings about what's happened, it's amazing to see how the similarities can kind of be woven through a little bit. And that thought of, you know, if I could touch one person's life, or if this could help somebody, or if this could connect with somebody, if this could mean something to somebody. I've often had those thoughts myself, both in not only in what I've talked about on the show, but in just day-to-day life. And I think I've come to remind myself, you know, I first and foremost want to make sure that I'm doing it for myself in a way of like connecting with that part of myself, or like revisiting that topic or expanding on something. And then I want to like present it as, you know, just a gift to the world, or a gift to, you know, a small group of people, or whoever I want to share it with, you know, and just remind myself of like, if I'm doing it for myself and writing these stories or reading these stories, I'm kind of going on a tangent about this a little bit, but, you know, I would be very curious to know how authors have felt hearing their, the feedback from their books.
But I also think we as people who podcast kind of feel that too, of like, I don't know who's going to listen, but it's really fun to do this. And we kind of get some of our stories out and we share some of our thoughts, and it's, you know,
Some people relate, some don't.
but it's just kind of a fun way to share.
It's a creative
Absolutely.
medium.
It is.
Same with authors. It's a creative medium that they're sharing with us. It's interesting how the thought process of like either politics or personal influences or things like that comes out in an artistic way, and how that can affect the audience in a way that can change their lives, you know?
Oh, I mean, that's a great little segue that I wanted to mention. You know, what would it mean for me to have read queer-related books as a young person? It honestly would have been life-changing. And it would have been, you know, illuminating to, oh, I relate to this. I connect with this character. I connect with this community. To have had that earlier on in life might have changed the trajectory. Again, there's always, you know, the coulda, woulda, shoulda, you know, if I only had known, you know, what I know now. But I am grateful for where I'm at now in life, but I do often wonder, like, if I had had it sooner, how would my life changed or be different?
Growing up, I didn't have the social media to know and to look up. Like, what did we have? Google, maybe? I didn't even have YouTube till college. Like, there was no going out and searching besides like going to the library. In a lot of ways, I haven't seen my experience as someone who is mixed race. There's books out there that I have read, and that there are plenty I haven't that talk about a mixed culture experience, but I've never had one that I've related to. It's interesting how some people can see themselves so inherently in things and then not see themselves in other things. It's like you pick up any required literature in school and you see no sort of representation. Maybe Mark Twain, maybe, where it talks about James.
Yeah, but the representation that you're getting in those books is from the perspective of a slave.
Exactly.
So then
Like,
that's
so
what you believe your
limited.
position is. It's the same thing when you only see people of color or different races working in like blue collar work or like maids and different positions like that. Like that doesn't represent
No, it doesn't.
the whole. It just kind of puts blinders on.
And so it makes me wonder, like Adam was saying, if you were back 14 years old, wouldn't it be so crazy to have that discussion? Seeing representation is so important when you're that young.
What does it do to a person, especially a young person, to grow up and never see themselves reflected in any form of entertainment?
Well, I would say, speaking from experience, my own personal experience, and again, growing up, I grew up very Orthodox Mormon or LDS or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I did not know that I was gay. I did not know that I was part of the LGBTQ community. And I think for me, it was just, I didn't know how to date for once, like for one example. The very straightforward guideline is, don't date till you're 16 and go on group dates if you do, but then go on a mission, but then come back from your mission, and then you better date hard and fast and get married hard and fast, and start cranking out kids. It's like, I had no idea. I had probably only been on 2 group dates before I went on my mission, and they were both with women at the time, and coming back from a mission, I only went on, a handful of dates with women before I was like, something's not clicking here. And so to have known maybe earlier on, like reading from books that I could relate to, I don't know. It's fascinating to see what my experience has been, but then kind of learning how to date on my own, but then seeing the struggles of someone dating in a book and feeling like, oh my gosh, like this feels, very much like the experiences that I've gone through. But then when I'm like, I think your question kind of tied in like recommending it as well, like how I think it depends on what is that person looking for potentially, like have they communicated, what are they interested in, what's something that resonates with them. And I've appreciated books that have been recommended to me, but I definitely appreciate how it's special to that person who's recommending it, because then I can see maybe where they're thinking, where their head is at, and maybe what phase of life they're going through, or overthinking, for example. But I really appreciate that there's a wide range of topics, wide range of genres, and it's amazing to find like, what's your niche, and then like being able to share those stories with other people.
It sounds like the conversation is really important, not necessarily purely the book. It's the conversations you can have with a person about it after. It reminds me, Julie often will get a book, read it, annotate it, and give it to someone. And so when you go through and read it, you see her thoughts on it. It's really fun to see.
I love it.
Oh, I think it's important to realize that seeing yourself in literature isn't vanity. It's a reminder that you exist and that you matter, and like your experience matters.
Absolutely.
So, do you each want to go through a book?
Yes. The exercise today is to share a book where you really saw yours.
Go first.
You want me to go first?
Yes. And then why? Because
Okay.
I said so.
I'm actually picking a book that I just finished a couple days ago. I said I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. And it's The Open Era by Edward Schmit. Here's the twist, though. The main character, not only is he male, but he's queer. And he plays professional tennis. I am none of the... That's the one.
I literally just bought it the other day. Oh
I'm
my gosh.
obsessed.
How serendipitous.
But I
I'm so excited.
binged it on Saturday, like nonstop. The anxiety representation in that book is so good. And I've never seen it. Like, I've seen a lot of anxiety rep. Austin, the main character, is like so stuck to his phone, and he's like that chronic texter, like, they didn't text me back, I'm going to text him again. And then he finally is like, take my phone from me. I needed someone to do that when I was a teenager. Like, take it away. I just keep thinking, I just keep checking it. And oh, it just hit me so hard when I was reading it. I was just like, this is me. This is me in so many ways.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh my gosh.
Read it
I'm so excited to read it. I literally, it's literally the next thing I'm going to be reading, and I was so excited because it's been in like my shopping cart forever, and I was like, I have so many books already on my shelf that I was like, I got to whittle my way through. But I saw it at my favorite local indie bookstore, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm buying this today, even though I already spent my book budget for the month.
Yeah,
So
I have
excited.
to shout out the Man in the Machine. Goodreads had a giant banner for it, and I was like, that cover's gorgeous. And I looked it up, and I was like, yes, reading it immediately.
It is a gorgeous cover as like graphic design. Oh my gosh, like
I so read your book by its cover.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Who doesn't, really?
Hey, who's going next?
Adam, go for it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm like so nervous, but so excited. So I really thought long and hard about this because I'm just going to share the title of the book already. So it's Him by Sarina, Bowen, and Elle Kennedy. And yes, this is a romance book. Yes, it is a hockey romance book. And I know there's been quite an influx for a while. But this was the first book that I read that was actually a gift from a friend, where it was two men learning to fall in love with one another. And for me, I was also reading this for the first time in like my local boba tea shop at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, there are some spicy scenes. I've never read a spicy scene before in my life. I should probably go home and read this book.
That's brave.
I didn't know. I didn't know it was my first ever. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go home now.
You're like sweating in the corner, like, oh my gosh.
Literally. But it's crazy because all throughout this book, they're, both learning, like, I'm attracted to men. Like, I have these feelings. Like, what are these feelings? And they also have complicated, relationships with their families. I think, well, one of them actually doesn't. One of them has a good relationship. I think the other one doesn't. But it's just amazing to see how multifaceted both of these characters were and to see how much I related to both of them and the dynamics between them. And what's fun is that they have, I think, two other books. There's like a second book and then a shorter, like little tiny novel, I think. And it's amazing to see how they progress through this book, but then into the next one, they're like, okay, well, how are things working out now years down the road? And anyway, I love this book. I cannot recommend it enough.
I also have found it super interesting in the queer romances that I've read, the dynamic of them trying to figure it out. Like, I feel like there's one of the people that's like, I know who I am, and I know that these are the people that I love, and the other person's trying to figure it out. And I love that dynamic because
you don't see that.
And it brings so much tenderness and humanity to the relationship of just like, these are real people who are like falling in love with each other and they're just trying to figure it out. Because all relationships are complicated and complex in their own ways.
I can't imagine layering that on top of a relationship. Like when you read, those quote unquote traditional women and they already know, there's no, am I figuring this out? They know that they're attracted to them. And so that's a unique experience to any queer book or someone trying to figure out their identity. I mean, granted, we're all trying to figure out something, but I can't imagine going through trying to find your identity in that way.
With so much outside pressure and just like
on top of falling in love.
The constant like battering ram of thoughts, not only from yourself, but from everybody else in the world who thinks that they can have an opinion
on your life.
On your life. Yeah.
And I know the word yearning has been tossed around recently on social media about, the yearn. I mean, that's something else that I was figuring out. Like, okay, I like a slow burn, but I also like that there's, a bit of yearning, like, oh, will they, won't they, kind of thing. It kind of like annoys me though when it goes on a little too long. I'm like, okay, y'all, either
go.
Yes,
I love a slow burn. I'm one of those.
Do you ever hit the wall where you're like, will you freaking bang it out already?
I've only had that once. That was
because
third book in
where the characters have been like 14 years and like they're finally getting together and I'm like, I feel like I've been waiting 14 years. Let's go.
That's so funny.
Absolutely.
What's your book?
So excited.
Okay. The first thing that came to my mind when we talked about this was Hermione Granger, but it seemed a little tone deaf in Pride Month. But I'll tell you why, whether this makes it into the episode or not. Hermione was the first character I ever read that looked like me. Like curly hair, darker features. Now, I think she even is described as like not just curly hair, but curly frizzy hair. And as a kid, like someone called me like Curly Sue, and it's that. And then not only that, but we shared the same personality. Like we were both very tenacious, driven, goal oriented. So like the first book I ever saw representation for me was Hermione Granger, but I had a really hard time picking one character or one book. And it's because I've had that privilege of seeing myself in a lot of characters. What I wanted to bring to our discussion is I've learned about a lot of characters that way. I remember reading Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which was my first queer book. And she's not a perfect character. She's got faults and she's not a great person. But what I could really relate to is how she was maneuvering the 60s, 70s. Like
right.
it's older times, trying to figure that out as a movie star. So she's in the spotlight. It's probably similar to these like hockey romances where they're like in the spotlight, but they're trying to navigate their queerness. And so I feel like I learned just a snippet of what it was like to be queer and to be oppressed in that way. Other similar scenarios of reading like The Help or I there's lots of books that I've learned other people's perspectives on. So that's why I am so passionate about having representation in books, because it's not only about being yourself that matters first and foremost, but it's also about teaching others your experience. And I've learned a lot about, how Julia's seen the world by some book recommendations she's given me. And she has seen some of, the things that go through my head by changing other recommendations. So I think that I couldn't necessarily give one specific book or character, but I can speak to the ability to learn other people's perspectives in just the slightest of ways. I can't imagine living it.
I so appreciate that because I feel like that just really hones in on that specific point of, it spreads across so many different books, so many different stories. And it's just like when you find that character, that storyline, that emotional arc that somebody's going through, it just transcends all of the books, and you can find it.
Transcend. That's really what it does. I will say, I do also think it is very important to have all sorts of representation in your books that you have on your shelf, widening your perspectives of others so that you can learn.
Something that I thought was really interesting when I was looking at my bookshelves and like trying to think of characters that I saw myself in, a lot of them were men. And I don't know if that's because we're writing more fleshed out male characters than we are females. I don't know if there's something there because I literally hadn't seen myself in a female character, I don't think, until I read a book a couple weeks ago. And that was Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick. And I was like, oh, I like this so much.
That's so interesting because a lot of the books we read with female characters are badass assassins or like they're very strong characters. Like it's almost like we rarely see a main character that's not strong in some, or like dominant or leaders. Or so if you're looking for someone that has a softer side, a more in your head side, I personally can't tell you the last time I read a female main character.
Interesting phenomenon.
Are we speaking fiction?
Yes, but you can speak to nonfiction.
I'm trying to think too. Actually, give me like 2 seconds to pull up my bookshelf real quick. But thinking of like a female character that isn't necessarily like portrayed as like the badass warrior type, more so like in her head, maybe overthinking something.
Yes.
I am going through this and I don't know if I am seeing one either.
Because I feel like it's either we're badass leader or we are literally pulling ourselves out of the ashes of some of the most horrendous trauma. Like I need something in the middle. Like
give me a Joe Schmo.
I feel like so many horrible things happen to women in books. And then the stories about them like rising above that. But I think something that I loved about Phoebe Berman's Gonna Lose It by Brooke Averick is just that like Phoebe was just kind of average. Like she was living her life. I mean, Her big problem was that she was turning 30 and she was still a virgin. Like that was the thing. But Homegirl's got OCD and it was fantastic representation. But she had like fantastic friendships and she had an awesome job. Like she had this great life but she wasn't pulling herself up in this crazy trauma that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having a really hard time putting myself there.
Yeah, that is hard sometimes. That's actually another thing I thought of is I was like, I can't say that I fully relate to some of these characters because I read to escape life. I'd love to put myself out of my own head. You know what I mean?
That was a thing that I thought about of like, when we're reading, are we reading to like find ourselves or are we reading to experience other things?
It might
Like
differ.
what's our motivation to read?
It might differ on your mood.
Yeah,
even.
but I feel like most often I'm reading to experience other things. Like it's really awesome. And kind of like you said, like this enlightening, like almost like inspiration hitting of when you do have those moments, you really resonate with the character. But I think most of the time I'm reading to just like experience something else. Take me somewhere else. I want to walk in someone else's I want to know what their life is like.
And I mean, on that note, I was thinking about what recent books have I read that, take me in somebody else's shoes. There was a book called, I can't remember the author, but the Build a Boyfriend Project is the name of the book.
What?
And it was a really cute book, and it was the first book that I'd read that the main character was a transgender person, and so hearing their story of navigating dating and how they approach it, how do they like just be themselves, and they are a amazing person that is experiencing all the ranges of emotion, and but it's fascinating to see how just like one little demographic change, how can that change the story. And other books that I do have a couple other ones in the periphery that I wanted to talk about later, but about different, cultures, heritage backgrounds, that aren't in any way related to my culture or heritage background. It definitely broadens my horizons to see, how is the author depicting it and what can I take away from this? What can I understand and how can I continue to build that understanding and that connection to that community and to care about this community even more. And anyway, I very much relate to everything you shared.
I was just thinking about one of my favorite books, which is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. And that's kind of like a double heavy hitter. Like you've got a story of a slave who's been through horrendous abuse. The story is epistolary. I learned that word last week. Where it's letters between her and her sister. But there's also a queer storyline to it as well. And I remember when I was reading it, I was like, what? But that's one of my favorite books. I'm like the farthest away from like relating to it. I loved that book. So good.
One thing I've noticed is empathy is a muscle that must be like worked, just like any other muscle. And so going out and finding new perspectives that you want to understand more is imperative to our responsibility as readers. And if our goal is to become better people in life, like not even as readers, I think we should first look at our life and how we can make small changes to involve representation or some of the aspects we want to emulate. And it could be as simple as picking up books you wouldn't have normally for entertainment value. And then you're like, hey, I want to learn from this. Let's pick up something that I can learn about, not necessarily from like a fiction, nonfiction point of view, but just someone else's point of view. Empathy is something that we need to constantly work that muscle.
And that might mean that you have to put a little more work into how you're finding books. Maybe you have to dig a little bit deeper, but there's so many content creators on Book Talk that are promoting BIPOC authors with more representation. It's not as hard to find them now as it used to be. And it's worth it to just make that extra step.
By supporting those BIPOC authors or
queer authors
or any underrepresented community, we are telling publishers we want that. We want to see that. We need more of it. And I think collectively, a lot of us agree that we need more of it, but then we don't reach for one. We don't necessarily always support them. And unfortunately for these big companies, they respond to numbers and money. And I can't fault them for that as like running a business, but what we need to do as our call to action, our community needs to demand more from the publishing industry.
Representation.
And moving back to empathy on that as well, I feel like empathy exists, and I feel like we need more of it in the world. And I heard somebody say something recently of, people want to have a good geopolitical understanding, but do they even know their neighbors' names? And that hit me. I was like, holy cow, do I even know my neighbors' names? Like, I usually keep to myself a little bit because I'm just like, let me do my thing, let me do my job, let me like do my life or whatever. But I'm like so concerned about what's going on in the world. I'm like, do I actually care about what's going on in my own community at the end of the day? Like, am I involved? Do I know the name of the local shop owner? Do I, make friends at the local coffee shop? Like, I don't know. It was a fascinating concept. So I agree. I think empathy and, what do we reach for? What do we pick up? How do we, again, just become more aware, to build that empathy. So anyway, I love literally everything y'all are saying. This is, I'm having the best time. This is so great.
So much. I just think it's also important that we understand that as we go outside of our comfort zone, it's gonna be uncomfortable. You will have those moments where you're like, but that's where growth happens. Like, you can't grow inside your bubble. You gotta step outside it.
That's so true. And I feel like for me, whenever there's a book that maybe I wouldn't necessarily reach for immediately, I feel like the more I space it out, so maybe it's a book that I would reach for, maybe a new book that I'm exploring and trying, maybe it's a recommendation, maybe it's something I've never heard of before, but there's a balance that I try to have there, because to some extent, I do want to feel invested or interest in the book. I never want to get to the point where I'm like, gotta power through this read, like set the audio book speed to like 3.0x or whatever, just like... But I want to be able to feel like I'm actually enjoying it and learning something from it, even if it's a read once kind of a book.
Yeah, it's definitely not like change your whole TBR. Just we want it all revamped, representation forward. No, because reading is also just about enjoying yourself, right? But it's all I'm trying to say is just add a little bit in, add a little bit of the spice in, like not that spice. You can do that
Salt Bay or whatever, like
Yeah.
that guy. Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. I think the best bookshelf is a mix of books that entertain you, that see you, but also some books that stretch you.
What kind of stretching are we talking about?
I say maybe I should find a different word for that.
So our gift to you at the end of this episode is that each of us are going to recommend one book to help you see the world differently, and one book that will maybe help you see yourself. Okay, Adam's going to go first.
I'm so excited. So for seeing the world a little bit differently, I have to say this book in my hands right now. A suspense. It truly shared such a beautiful story of this culture and heritage, and I really felt like I was in this world as I was reading it. And there's so many beautiful highs, but also so many devastating lows throughout this book. And I don't want to give away too much, but it is On There in Santi We're Here by Joni Garzavilla. And it's, I believe, a town like near the border of Texas and Mexico. And it's just a beautiful romance story, but it's also dealing with, what is life like near the Texas-Mexico border, and especially for this family and everything that they journey through together. So it definitely broadened my horizons. It definitely helped change my perspective. And just, I felt like I was able to jump into this world and to kind of see a little bit more about this culture and background. So hopefully go get a copy.
You want to share yours of changing the world or changing someone's world?
Okay. A book that I would recommend, honestly, to anyone, because it's a great book. It's a great read, but it's one that expands your view that on a lot of different things. It's a fantasy. It's called Blood Over Bright Haven. It is a lot about a lot of different things. There's societal issues and poverty and power struggles, but also about women in the workplace and having men judge you. But it is a fantasy book, so I feel like there's so many of those that talk about hard topics. But Blood Over Bright Haven was written in a way that helped me see outside of my little bubble, even if it was in a fantasy setting.
I feel like I always go like lit fic or non-fic when I'm going for like a Let me rattle your world. Change your world.
The lit fic.
My book to change your world is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. Not only do you get the perspective of an immigrant, but you also get a queer perspective, which I think is so important to read today. So
I'm so excited to check out both of those books.
yeah. So the next one is a book to help you feel less alone. And
Oh, I'm
Adam's
gonna
gonna start again. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm really excited to share this book because this was my top book for last year. And it's okay. All three of these books that I've shared are all obviously like in the romance genre. But this I think is like the cutest romance one, but it was like a warm hug when I needed it the most. I had just gone through a pretty extensive surgery, and it was the first book that I started reading afterwards, and it just like gave me a sense of hope and feeling like everything was going to be okay. And anyway, so it is the book What If It's Us by Becky Albertelli and Adam Silvera. I definitely recommend this book. Go get a copy.
Okay. I already downloaded him on my Kindle.
She's just under
I
the
was over here
table.
like, it's on Kindle Unlimited. Download. Vanessa, what's your warm hug book?
I wouldn't say it was a warm hug.
Oh.
But it was one that I felt really seen in. And it was Beneath by Ariel Sullivan. I've already mentioned it. I also feel like I resonate with the males in the books. I don't know what it is.
I think they're usually a little more well fleshed out.
Well, the male character in this book is not the main character, but that particular book has a bunch of different characters and it's a found family, but each one is so well developed in their character development. There's something for everyone. And I really saw myself in the main male character, but I would dare to venture that Julie probably saw herself in a different character, and someone else could see themselves in another character. That one has something for everyone.
This is true. That is a great book. Hey, my choice, I just like looked down and I saw it on my list and I'm like, that's the one. I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak, who is the author of my favorite book of all time, Bridge of Clay, or shameless plug. But also he's the author of The Book Thief. And it is just he's an artist with his words for sure. But the story was so original. And I just remember loving it so much and it having an impact on like loving the people around me, getting outside myself, and just like understanding that we all have a purpose and the people are around us to love them and to help them on their journeys as well. That's mine. 'Cause I said a lot of what mine could have been earlier in the episode.
I'm so excited to dive into those ones. Thanks y'all for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. This
Oh
has
my gosh,
been
it has been
a
my
delight.
absolute.
It's been so fun.
I think we all came away with more to add to our TBRs.
And these conversations are just so important because reading is so fun, but also teaches us so much.
Every time Julie says reading is so fun, I have flashbacks to the time that she gave me a book and I bawled my eyes out and I threw it across the room and I instantly texted her and I was like, I will never forgive you for this.
It was, I will never forgive you and I will never forget this. And I was like, best friends forever.
Oh my goodness. It's amazing, Vanessa, that you had that reaction to the words. Reading is so fun because I also did as well, thinking about the words of RuPaul, that because reading is what? Fundamental. And so that was like what had gone through my mind.
Yes.
We love RuPaul.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Adam. It's been so great.
We loved
Thank you
it.
so much, y'all, for
We
having
want
me.
you to tell everybody where we can find you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, it has truly been a pleasure, an absolute joy through all of the silly moments, through all the serious moments, through all like the heartfelt talking about what books really stand out. It really, I'm so excited for this episode to come out. I'm so excited to listen to it again. Where folks can find me. So you can follow along at Queerly Overthinking on Instagram or TikTok or www.queerlyoverthinking.com. And one other little special plug here too, actually. So this season is the first one that I'm doing stickers for each episode that comes out. So for anybody who subscribes to the Patreon, I think it's the middle tier. I can't remember. There's like intern overthinker, associate, and then executive overthinker. Off the top of my head, they get a sticker for each episode that comes out. So for this specific episode, I'm going to make a special collab sticker that we're going to collaborate on. And I'm very excited for it to come out. And anyway, look forward to that, folks. But so that's where you can find me.
Fantastic.
We'll have all of that info in the notes as well.
Thanks for tuning in today. We love you guys. Remember to read, and read some more. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.